Hello and welcome back to Middle Aged Gaming. Today we will be covering reboots. Are they mulligans or more than just that? Yeah, we
Hey,
don't know where
Greg,
Phil is, so three
you
ends up in the
forgot to
comments.
wake up.
Yeah, we don't know. He's not here today, so it's just the two of us. So we're gonna try to survive as best we can. So what about something like another game that was on the list that I kind of agree with, but I'm not quite sure I 100% agree with was Fallout. Fallout 3 and then New Vegas, where they went from the original 2D isometric, uh, from 1 and 2, and then there was a long gap, and then they came out with 3, and they kind of updated it for modern graphics, but it didn't undo the original. So, would you consider this more of a sequel or a reboot?
Are we talking about three?
3,
Because
yeah.
I didn't play three. I played two, which I really loved. And three, I heard a lot of critics. I played four, which I feel like they removed mechanics more than added a new spin to the series.
Mm.
So it's Fallout. The more you go, the less you have, basically. And Fallout 76 was the Everest of it. That's the culmination of how bad you can go. And Bethesda to was it last year or 2 years ago? Something like this that the E3 Bethesda did nothing else but say sorry, or really sorry for what we did. Very sorry. Yeah, we are here and we have 1 hour to talk to you, and the only thing we can do is Elder Scroll or anything. No, we're just sorry for 76.
Now 76 is
It
kind of
was
popular though.
Yeah, they had, well, they couldn't start, they started from very far.
Mm.
Apparently, I don't know if it's popular because they completely fixed it, because for me, it's something which is very attractive. Post-apocalyptic game, for me, it's like, "Rawr," it rings all the bells. I really like this. Um, but again, it was extremely bad. So is it popular because they really invested in the game and now it's playable and it's fun, or because it was so bad it's just like the game you have to do just to have a laugh? Look, it's so crap, like Cyberpunk in the first days of the PlayStation. Hey, look at this, the gun is in his head. All
Yeah,
right.
I've heard it's kind of like the cyberpunk thing where it started off really bad, but then they cleaned it up and it actually had some good concepts behind it, but those just were not expressed, or like a not quite to the same extent, but kind of a No Man's Sky kind of thing too, where it's like there's a good idea here, we botched it up, but over time we're able to patch out and some of the dings and whatnot.
Yes, but that's the issue there. Please take your time. We it's okay for us to wait for Start Citizen for 10 years if in the next in 10 years we have a game which is a revolution, which is fantastic, and you are absolutely immersed in it because it's so great, rather than having, oh my god, we have charts and we need to release it by this date because we have numbers to make and all, and that's gonna crash and it's gonna hurt the franchise, it's gonna hurt your sales, it's gonna hurt everyone. So why would you do that? Is it the publisher who's pushing the developing team, saying you only have 3 months? No man, come on, in 3 months we barely have an alpha, maybe a beta if we're lucky. We're releasing in 3 months. Where's the door? And I'm in Montreal, and there was a lot of talk. I have Ubisoft here, Ubisoft, Eidos, many studios are based in Montreal, and Ubisoft was in the papers quite a lot for being extremely toxic environment to work in. Guys are doing insane hours. There's a pressure, absolutely crazy. If they release a game which is not finished, of course, the backlash goes straight to the developing team. Why did you do a crappy game? Because you told me to release it now when you need six, maybe one more year of development. Don't look at me. You told me to release it. So I really don't agree with the release it whenever it's kind of ready, and we'll patch it up later. They did this for Witcher. I did, even if Witcher 3 is now extremely good, for 2 years it was crappy. And that's not that. Why, when you think Witcher, the first thing you think is Geralt looking at a house with a horse on top? So, uh, day one, huh? Yeah, day one. Okay, get down.
Yeah, Witcher still has issues. My biggest problem was you acquire a lot of gear throughout the game. You know, you kill guys, you pick stuff up, and I'm the kind of guy who always hoards stuff and then sells tons of it and has tons of money, right? So I would always gather this gear, go to the main city, and sell stuff. But the thing is the vendor's inventory never resets. So about halfway through the game, I was like, I'm just not going to pick up anything anymore because every time I go to the guy and I want to sell something, it's like a 45-minute long loading just to load his inventory because he just had so much stuff. And I was like, just
Oh
erase the
yeah.
stuff that I gave you, right? Like this is just
No,
junk. But no, it's just this guy's got 100 or like 500 swords, and it's just like we need to load every single one. And it's like, no, just
are you playing on
erase them.
PC or
I was
PlayStation?
playing on PS4. On PC, I guess it's a lot
Uh,
easier because you can reset the
but you
cache and
must.
stuff.
Oh, I'm pretty sure there must be a mod for this.
I think there is a mod for that, but yeah, there was. Yeah, it was just really annoying that it was just, oh my god, like this is such an oversight. Why would anybody think this? And I get it for some things. There were definitely some things where I was like, okay, if you accidentally sold something and you're like, oh no, I needed that, fine. But I feel like you could be able to put tags on things where like this is a legendary sword. It will never leave his inventory. This is just some generic axe you picked off of some random dude, you know, disappear. So I feel like it should do that where it's like if this is kind of like a legendary piece of weapon, we'll hold on to it. But there's only one of them in the game. You can't acquire another one. But that's why. But that's not how they did it. So, but yeah. So,
Me.
yep. No, go ahead.
No, no, I was just noticing. I was very worried since Phil is not here. I was just thinking we're never gonna talk about an hour, and it's already 55.
I
So hey,
know, and we
well,
could go a lot longer if we wanted to, but we're gonna have to end it relatively soon.
yay.
Uh, but yeah. So overall, what do you think? Reboots, are they a good thing, or do you think it's kind of lazy on the part of developers, and they should be more focused on original ideas rather than let's just retell the same story in a
I
different way?
No, I am far much fonder, if you can say that,
Mm-hmm.
of reboots than remake. For me, a remake could be lazy. You're just releasing something, you already have all the codes, and you're just releasing exactly the same with maybe a slight graphic updates or something. This is just to make money out of something. So that's lazy. A reboot is really here to revitalize a franchise. Tomb Raider is fantastic. The new series. It really needed this, and many other games really need this to reinvent themselves. We talked about Resident Evil. They were getting at the end of what they could do, so they needed to do something else, and so you need to reboot. And that's where the creativity of the developers shine, because you already have a massive universe with a lore, with stuff which are already set, so you can't really touch them. What can we do with this and make it slightly different, but much more better for your community? And I'm sure the community managers must have a lot of fun to listen to the fans' idea,
I'm
of
sure fun
course.
is the word they would use.
Uh, Fun.
Yeah.
um, but no, it's definitely needed, and not every 2 games, of course. But if the developers or the publishers can smell, when your series is at an end, you had a great run. Uncharted, you had a great run. Far Cry, you had a great run. Far Cry 6, I'm worried about this one. Maybe that will be the one too much. But again, uh, you pulled the rope as much as you could. Now your fan base is tired, and that's just not gonna work for the next one. So if you want to continue this series, find something else. And for me, no, that's great. What do you think?
I'm actually kind of in the opposite, where for me, now I have kind of a personal rule that I think should be applied to remakes in that I don't think a remake should be made one generation later, definitely two or three. If I was going to remake a game, I'd say do it with like a 10-year-old game. Final Fantasy VII Remake makes sense to me. I mean, the original one is really old at this point.
Yeah.
If you were going to remake Secret of Mana, makes sense to me. You know, you're taking an old game that was great, that a previous or that the current generation of younger gamers missed out on, but you're presenting it in a way that appeals to them with updates that it's accessible in a way. It's not. It doesn't. You don't necessarily have some of the hangups that the original had. That's fine for me as far as a remake goes. Releasing The Last of Us on PS3 and then releasing The Last of Us
No,
HD on PS4, no, no,
no,
that to
I
me
agree. No,
is no. If
that's
yeah,
just money grabbing.
exactly, and especially now, I kind of could get it on the PS3, PS4, but now with PS5 being able to play PS4 games, like they say, there's rumors that Blue Point's going to be doing a remake of Bloodborne. I don't think there's a reason to do it. Just make a patch that adds 60 frames per second. You just patch out the original game. You don't have to create an entirely new game. So for me, for a remake, I think you need to have that time gap where the current generation missed out on it. Nobody in the current generation was missing out on Bloodborne if they want. It's still there.
Yeah.
Um,
I absolutely agree with you on this.
yeah,
That's why I was saying don't reboot every 2 or 3 games. There's no point.
yeah, exactly.
Wait.
But as far as reboots, I'm kind of on the fence. Something like Tomb Raider, I think, makes a lot of sense because Tomb Raider is a big franchise, and it would have been a shame to let it die, but it couldn't have continued the way it was. So it did kind of have to reinvent itself. Resident Evil 7 is another good example of where I think, this franchise, it's got potential, but you have to kind of modernize, not necessarily modernize, but you have to, consider evolving a bit, not just staying the same thing. But sometimes I feel like rebooting, particularly when the original game, people felt like, oh, the original game was problematic. Maybe I need to reboot the game, start over, but then change some of it to make it more modern, or appeal to modern sensibilities. In those cases, I'm kind of like, no, maybe you should just let the game die, because that was part of what made the game popular back then were these aspects. So if you change it, you're taking what made it interesting or what made it fun, and yeah, maybe it's more socially acceptable now, but
Yeah, don't take
why
the
did you need to
foundation.
make it socially acceptable? Just let it die and make something new. So in those cases where they're fundamentally trying to like change the message of the game or uh the change the appeal of the game or change the audience, the core audience,
Mhm.
certain games. I'm trying to think of a good example, but a game where you have a certain niche audience. I think Shadowrun, I think, did that, where they had the original Shadowruns and then they tried to reboot it, but they tried to do it in kind of that third person action adventure to kind of like appeal to the new younger crowd. Um, so in that case, I actually did really enjoy Fallout 3, but actually, if it was me and they were like, hey, let's make, if I was at that table and somebody was like, hey, let's make Fallout, but let's make it like a first person shooter type thing. So it's gonna be like first person, like Elder Scrolls. I would have been like, nah, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Yeah,
I would have said no to
no,
that. I enjoyed
yeah,
it, but I
no.
would have said no. So yeah, yeah, I would have been like, nah, let's just make a new game.
Yeah,
Let's just make something completely different. Because again, especially I feel like especially now, nostalgia is both gaming's greatest asset and most poisonous asset. Where nostalgia can entirely sell a game, and it can make a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake without nostalgia. People being like, "Oh, that's a weird game." Okay, maybe we'll see. It would have, if it wasn't Square Enix and didn't have Final Fantasy slapped on it, and you just made a game like that, people would be like, "Oh, this is another one of those linear corridor," you know. chapter based. It's just kind of a generic RPG, JRPG. But because it's Final Fantasy VII and it has that nostalgia, for somebody that has played the original, it's like, wow, these are the same characters. We're getting these new spins on it. As a fan of the original, you get a lot more out of it than somebody who's new coming to the table, because you can understand things in reference and you can see things from a new perspective, as opposed to only having the perspective of the new one. So